Verdict is a live broadcast, and the opinions expressed by the host, guests, and callers are not necessarily those of this station. The references to legal matters are based on actual cases filed in federal and state courts and are matters of public record. Every legal situation is different, and none of the information or views provided during the taping of The Verdict are meant to be legal advice. For more information about The Verdict, please visit us at www.theverdicttv.com. Hello, and welcome to The Verdict, a show where lawyers take you behind the scenes as they prosecute the most action-packed legal cases around South Florida and New York. The Verdict is all about powerful insight and analysis about how to put the law on your side. If you want to call in, you can reach us at 888-565-1470 or write us on Facebook at The Verdict. Now, let's get down to justice. Here comes The Verdict with your hosts, Jay Farrow and Janine Davis.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to The Verdict. I'm your host, Jay Farrow.
And I am your host, Janine Davis. Welcome, everybody, to what is going to prove to be a very exciting show.
Very exciting show.
Particularly with what we have to share at the top of the hour.
At the top of the hour.
Jay, take it away.
Well, first of all, this is The Verdict. This is a show taking you inside the law, behind-the-scenes look at some of the most action-packed cases that are out there that CNN didn't exactly pick up. We're also talking about how do you make the law work for you? Disrupting the law in a way to make cases move faster.
Absolutely. And also bridging the gap between a lawyer and a non-lawyer. And I am the consumer, essentially, right? I represent what would be the consumer for the service of the law. So we're here to educate. We're here to further the conversation, interrupt the pattern of practice of
Dispel
not only
the
the
fear.
law.
Dispel the fear
exactly.
of the law.
Absolutely.
And we've teamed up to bring you a show that allows you to hear from the lawyer's perspective and then from this perspective of a non-lawyer.
Of a non-lawyer, correct.
And also, you know, we thought about this for quite a while. And how would the show work?
Yeah.
And because I have a way of explaining things that I only know after almost 20 years of doing this. And now it's like, you know, people come, number one thing is like, you know, I don't understand that legalese stuff.
Exactly. And it is legalese, right? Because it's very nuanced. Just like any profession, there's a shorthand. Mm-hmm. There are terms. When you're talking to an accountant, the same thing. A doctor, the same thing. All kinds of things. So it's creating the gap between the legalese and the actual English. And
action-packed things that come up in my law practice and the cases that I'm handling that have been filed. So everything that we're going to talk about is a matter of public record. All the cases that I might name name by name is all a matter of public record. You can find them at the clerk's office, whether that be the federal clerk's office or the clerk in Broward County. I'll share with you as we go along. I wanted this case. I wanted a space for a lawyer to just speak out and say, you know, if someone's acting like a schmuck, I'm going to call you out and being a schmuck. I mean, if the other side's doing these things, unforced errors, whatever it is, I want to be able to say that. I mean, I want to be able to talk about what really goes on and how frustrating it is because it all grinds things up. The nonsense that I see out there makes things take 10 times longer, 10 times more expensive, and it cuts the little guy out, and I'm tired of it. So this is what we've created is a show to talk about a lot of legal issues. We're going to talk about this in an action-packed way, if we can. And Absolutely. I'll just start with this. Okay, my law firm supports people to stand up to the bullies in their life. That could be a business bully. It could be a boss. It could be someone a partner, an investor, another member of your LLC operating agreement.
Anyone you're doing business with.
Right.
It could be, you know, someone that you've contracted. You're both two equals in the business. Right. And things have gone awry.
And
bullies bully. And bullies hire bully attorneys or ineffective counsel. One or the other.
Hey, you know what bullies also
Either
do?
way,
okay, so this is the first for
ineffective.
Me. This is the first for me. And it's awkward because you received the call.
Right.
But it
was very awkward for me.
We received our first death threat at the law firm today.
Yes.
And I want to speak about it because, number one, we called the police. You know, it's not like it's not like it's impossible to find people for doing things like this.
Well, and when you put two and two together, it doesn't really take a genius to figure out who was behind it and what it's really about.
Right.
And it's a shame that people would succumb to such silly, unforced errors when there's a better way.
Yeah, that thought, though, that you can intimidate somebody or push them around.
Well, because they've been doing it for years. Why would we be any different? They didn't account for the fact that, we would not be afraid. Yes, it's an unpleasant thing to go through.
Not to say that we weren't afraid.
Oh, correct. That is correct. Jay and I, we talk about this. You are afraid, but you show up anyway. You are afraid. It is unpleasant. It is uneasy. I've had an uneasy feeling since, and it only served to make me stronger.
Right.
It only served to make us, I think, myself for sure, but also us, the firm, be more passionate about standing up to the bullies, because this is what they do, and they've done it for decades, and they continue to do it, and they will until they find a better way themselves, and that's between them and them. But until they find a better way, this is the way they conduct themselves.
I wrote somebody something in an email today, and I said it, and I'll say it to you. If I find out who the proverbial other side of the fence is, and I mean, I support any legal remedy. Matter of fact, I would go as far to say is that some stuff that used to be legal, like maybe many moons ago under a different regime. But no one gets to do that. No one gets to call and make a death threat or a physical threat. We're the lawyers that receive this. Now,
yeah,
I receive other types of threats from the people on the other side.
Oh, sure.
I mean, and that's
Rule
the thing
11.
is the number one thing that I've seen in the law, and I've talked about it on other shows, is this nonsense about large law firms trying to push small law firms around by sending out threats to go after sanctions against them personally.
Correct. This is called what's known as chilling the action.
Chilling the action.
It's done as an intimidation tactic.
Right.
And again, it's something that was actually created for a good reason.
Right.
That has now been used as a weapon. They've weaponized.
I like the way you said that.
Yeah, they've weaponized something that actually is functional. Why? Because we live in a very litigious society.
Right.
And so in order to curb frivolous litigation, meritless litigation, they've created the sanctions and the Rule 11, among many other things, because again, an attorney has a responsibility above and beyond a layperson in his capacity. So, they're brought to task, and they are, have certain things that they must adhere to. But we're seeing it where they're using this Rule 11 as a weapon to silence an action, a lawsuit with merit, and they're doing it with the hopes that the person will not pursue. Because many times, we've discussed this before, solo practitioners will not pursue an action if they feel their
like
license is threatened.
It's not just a license. Because it's not just the license; it's the time and effort that you got to put up with these bozos.
Yes.
And I'll tell you,
But at the end of the day, it's your livelihood.
It's a bunch of bozos who think that they can push people around.
Yeah.
And I'm just not going anywhere.
Right.
So we're going to talk about all this on this show. We're going to talk about how the solo practitioner can deal with the bozos, because there's a bunch of them out there, not just in the large law firms, but they're just out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the level of civility in the law, as far as lawyers are concerned, the lack of the level of civility is certainly something that we there's 10 shows I could fill with the lack of civility. I mean, just war stories that I have with the bozos on the other side. And clowns, bozos. As the show goes on, I'm going to come up with a bunch of euphemisms for these characters. It truly is unbelievable.
Well, it's unnecessary,
now,
right?
We wanted to talk at the beginning of the show about how do we make the law more accessible? When I say more accessible, what am I talking about? I'm saying if you have a legal problem and you want to stand up to the bully in your life, let's say, and it's like, well, where do you start? I mean, it's a daunting task. I mean, first of all, you have to, let's say that you got a phone call like that, but it wasn't like you say death threat, or maybe it was something about your job. If you don't do something, or if your business partner says, hey, I'm cutting you out, or took all the money out of the checking account. Like,
what do you do?
People are afraid of people. This is not something new. This is like from the beginning of time.
Absolutely.
But in today's civilized society, you get to go and try to find a lawyer to handle something like this.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do? After you pick up the phone, like after you research it, what type of law what type of lawyer? I get this question.
Right. So this is a great question, right? Because people are intimidated by the law, by the lawyers, because again, there's seems to be like a divide. It's them and us, right? And so, but that's not really the case. And that's part of what we're doing the show for, to sort of dispel that myth, because really lawyers are people. Lawyers are people with a specialization in the law. And many times people don't know what the right questions are to ask. So let's say I'm a client.
Okay.
I'm going to you.
Okay.
All right. What can I expect when I walk through the doors at your law firm?
Well, you should expect to feel welcome.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that lightly.
Right.
I mean, you should have a space where this is not a sell. I'm not trying to sell you anything.
Right.
I'm
Because you
looking-
have a legal problem. You've got to do something about it.
This is not. I'm not attempting to sell you.
Yeah.
On your problem. You know that you have a problem. My thought is create a safe space for someone to feel comfortable enough to be able to share honestly, authentically, and openly what's going on with them, because otherwise it doesn't work.
Right. So you would say then, number one, be honest with your attorney about everything.
I said before that, feel good about the office that you're in. Feel like you're feel like you're welcome. Feel like feel like there's a professional environment or a warm environment, something that makes you feel right. Because there's a bunch of lawyers. We're not all the same. Our offices aren't the same.
Right.
The atmosphere that we try to create is not the same. I mean, I don't ever have two clients at the same time waiting in my office.
That's correct. You always make sure to sort of give them their due. And I think that that's a distinction also of your practice, which is different than other practices.
And some lawyers have a large waiting room, and that might work for their practice. I'm not dispelling, that's just fine for them. I mean, they might have a different type of practice that supports that environment. For me, I would spend anywhere between no less than an hour, more like 2 or 3, depending on the client, depending on the issue, to find out if I can help them. And also, how do you go through that process? Like, how do you know if you can help them or not? Does it depend on the case? Does it depend on where they are? Tell us a little bit about that. As a general matter, I could point someone in the right direction as far as their legal issue is concerned, generally. How do I know that I can help them? I have things that I have niched into, okay? And civil litigation, I got this question the other day. What's the difference between civil litigation and commercial litigation?
Right. Yeah.
It's the same, actually. It's not. There's no real nuances.
Because they're two different.
Anything that's not criminal or family is civil. So.
Okay.
But there's 1,000 different types of civil law. There's 1,000 different types of civil claims. There's construction litigation. Then there's traditional like breach of contract. There's trademark infringement. There's patent law. There's franchise law. And each one, has its nuances. Each one has its little twists and turns, and over time, you get to learn a bit about the practice. So, I mean, as far as if I can help them or not, I listen to them.
Okay. So it's not so much practice area for you as it is if you feel that you can be of service to them.
Like I won't take like certain cases like for instance, I'm not a member of the patent bar. So if they're coming for a patent issue or patent infringement or I know where to send them. I mean to lawyers that I'm comfortable that would give them the information that they need.
Okay. So are there so you just talked about the patent. So what other types of law would you not necessarily take, but then otherwise would feel comfortable having broad strokes?
Well, I did practice construction law a while ago, but I wouldn't take a construction I wouldn't take a construction case like of a large building, let's say.
Got it.
In other words, if a very large
defending
a very large general contractor and a subcontractor going after over a contract defect case,
right.
That's something I'm not going to handle.
Got it.
But you asked me another question. I want to get this answer on the other side of the break about like how do I know that I can help them?
Yeah, this is really important because, again,
And what happens if I'm not able to? So let's go. I want to take a break.
Practice area.
And I want to support you to let you know what you're going to expect when you walk into a lawyer's office. I think this is good.
Join us on the other side of the break.
Farrow Law Firm, standing up to corporate bullies, using innovative, aggressive, and effective strategies to resolve disputes effectively and timely. Contact us at 954-252-9818, online at farrowlawfirm.com, and on Facebook at Farrow Law Firm. We look forward to being of service to you. You have been watching The Verdict with Jay Farrow and Janine Davis. If you want to call into the show, you can reach us at 888-565-1470 or write us live on Facebook at The Verdict. Now, back to The Verdict.
Welcome back one more time to The Verdict, show that's taking you inside the law. Right now we're talking about an initial consultation.
Yes.
We're talking
What to
about
expect.
what to expect. We want to give you accessibility to the law in a way that you've maybe never felt before. The law is on your side. You just got to ask for the right questions. Right. And you were asking me about when a client comes to my office, like if I can't, how do I know I can help them? Right. I've been doing this. Luckily for me, I mean, I've been blessed to have handled a lot of different types of litigation.
Okay.
Everything from bankruptcy to construction to family to criminal, appellate work, trademark, and franchise law, and civil racketeering.
Got it.
I'm able to at least listen with an ear to understand what they might need. And understand if I might not be a fit for them if the nuance doesn't fit what I'm up to. Like, in other words, if I get somebody who has medical malpractice or products liability malpractice, I mean, I know some really, really good lawyers that would be able to take that case.
Who could support them. So you're not the type of person or the type of attorney who would like to just take every single case for yourself and not share. And in other words, what I hear you saying is that you're more about being of service to that person than taking on a case for the sake of taking it on. Is that correct?
Absolutely. There are so many good attorneys out there that are doing great work in individual fields that have done it for a very long time. And their level of care and concern for the client and for the result and for the person more than anything else. Because I know lawyers that look at clients as people going through a human experience, and it's important for me.
And they happen to have a legal issue at the moment. But
because at the end of the day, people are like, "What do you do?" I'm like, "I don't know." At the end, like, what do I really do? I create illusions. Okay, I listen to a client's story, and I look at the evidence that they give me, and I look at the law, and I create a story. And I create a story because my job is to explain through a process that story deserves compensation, a redress, a relief under the law.
Right.
And then, the other side's story is going to be the defenses and everything else like that.
So how did you get into, you say very often, and the tenets of the firm are standing up to the bullies in your life. How did that come about? And how is that like your thing? I
represented, in one of my first jobs at a law school, I represented debtors in bankruptcy. And back then, it was before the 2005 restructuring of the bankruptcy code. Bankruptcy was kind of cool. I mean, you could go into a Chapter 7 at any time and get rid of all of this unsecured debt, credit card debt, and it was cool because it was like it was truly a fresh start. And once you hit that bankruptcy button, all of a sudden there's this shield, the most powerful shield that I know of in the law. It's called the automatic stay. And it was like you got to freeze. You ever see the movie The Matrix?
Yes.
And they have like all these attack sentinels, and they're coming after this So you press one button and all that stops. As a matter of fact, if it doesn't stop, I got to file motions for sanctions against large creditors, like let's say credit card companies, banks, and I got and they had to stop all collection activity.
So for people who may not understand, a stay is really a stop. It's
Stay